This is
Good evening.
Carmelita Gums. It has a very bad echo.
I take it that was the family pet.
You guys are live, and we already have 2 viewers. Councilwoman Gums, feel free to begin.
All right, it sounds like you can. I'm not sure. It's still a bad echo, and I apologize. What's the problem?
You just had 2 profiles up. I went ahead and removed one of them. So you guys, you should be fine now. There's no echo anymore.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Good afternoon. I am Councilwoman Carmelita Gums, and I want to thank you all for joining us this Thursday evening to talk about the proposed senior development for Old Fairburn Road and Camp Creek Parkway. I know a few of you all have reached out to me in regards to this particular development, and I wanted to kind of share. I was a little caught off guard, and Mr. Coleman will share exactly what took place. And we had an opportunity to kind of catch up on the development and talk a little bit. I shared many of your concerns in regards to the development. And we also have our Director of Planning and Zoning, which we call, Community Regulatory Affairs, which is very long here in the city of South Fulton. But he will also be sharing some thoughts on the development as well. I actually work a little bit differently than maybe some council people, is where I really try to get some engagement before we start going through the full process. I think it's important to make sure your voices are heard and share any concerns that you all have, and we all kind of work together to find something that is amenable that we can all live with. So hopefully through this process, we'll get to learn one another. We get to find out exactly what it is that we're looking for in our community, and then hopefully we'll be able to come to some type of resolve. I do want to share some of the things that was discussed and some big concerns. They have a few HOAs that are around, and then also too, we are neighboring other municipalities such as the city of Atlanta and also East Point. So there's a concern about decreased property values, definitely a concern about increase of crime, even though we're talking about a senior development. Also increase of traffic on a 2-lane road, which is Old Fairburn Road. I don't know if many of you have traveled on that road before, but it is a 2-lane road. And then they experience many issues such as trash, also issues from other rental apartments that are on Old Fairburn Road as well. They're not in the city of South Fulton. I believe that is the city of Atlanta and the city of East Point. So there are some great concerns that the residents are having. I think you had, Mr. Coleman, you had a community meeting previously, but I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to kind of discuss together and again hear Mr. Hull to kind of talk about what we're proposing, what it will look like, how we can kind of come to some resolve, if not any. So I'm going to turn it over to you fellas while I adjust the family pet, and I will be back and answer any questions. Sounds good?
Awesome.
Sounds great. As long as you share a picture of the family pet. Mr. Coleman, I'll let you start.
Sure. And I'll, for the sake of folks that didn't make the community meeting, I'll just start over from the beginning. This project that we're proposing is 124 market rate senior apartments. And I want to define that really quick. Market rate means there are no subsidies that will be on the apartments, be it full rent. Currently in the city of South Fulton, which I am a resident of as well off of Boat Rock Road. Um, the only senior apartments that are in the city of South Fulton are all tax credit, which means that basically there's an income limit for the folks that live there, as it's being subsidized by tax credits. So the market is just actually screaming for this product. And I understand people say, yeah, I want it, I just don't want to hear. We get that all the time. However, what we try to do is kind of calm the fears of these types of developments, because we understand. So we don't take the opinions and somewhat the disposition from some of the residents on these types of developments. And that's why I've been very open about visiting some of our properties that we have in the marketplace right now, some that have just opened as recently as a month ago. I challenge anyone to go visit and come back and say it's not a nice development, because we know what nice developments look like and what bad ones look like. This property is sitting on, I want to say, almost 11 acres, of which, unfortunately, only about, I'll say 8.5 of those acres can be developed. There's streams and some topographical issues that only allow us to use about eight acres. That's why we're only suggesting 124 units. That is a small development, and we don't even come close to demand. We got a market study that shows that over 600 market rate senior developments are needed for the city of South Fulton, because we have 0. This particular property will feature, the best amenities, the highest grade of finishes, walking trails. It will not be a class C or B product, it will be a class A. And that's really what I want to get across to everyone. This is the same property we would put in Alpharetta, Gwinnett, which is where we just opened one, in Grayson, also in Peachtree Shoals. And both of those properties, believe it or not, were leased up in 30 days, because the highest prevailing demographic right now is seniors. Either through just wanting to sell their homes, especially in a market rate situation, sell their homes to downgrade, whether that's townhomes or senior cottages or adult-only senior communities, which is what this would be. So, I challenge everyone to kind of educate themselves and visit some of these properties. You'll see that they're really, really assets to the community, not a detriment. Derek, obviously, as we field questions, I can answer anything related to the property. We're in the midst of getting our rendering done, which should be done here within the next, hopefully by the end of this week. But I know I got to at least have it by the 24th, although I think in all likelihood, we may push this out an additional month just to get the community a little bit more engagement, give everyone a chance to actually go and visit some of our properties, to come back with, maybe their opinion after that, to show that we're actually a beacon in the neighborhood, not a detriment. And I can tell you unequivocally that apartments do not, at least not these types, do not have an impact negatively on property values. That is an absolute fact. Market rate units have never done that. Sometimes when you get apartments where they're family apartments, and dare I say, sometimes the subsidized apartments that have a lot of traffic and smaller kids and teenage kids, you will get that element. And unfortunately, that's true. Our main product, believe it or not, for some of those reasons, is seniors. We do seniors on the tax credit side and the market rate side. Nonetheless, once again, we're open book. Please feel free. I think when I send out everything, I have my email, phone number. I'll I'll give Derek a list of all the properties that you can go visit as well, and he can send those out via email or whatever type of communication that he has at his disposal. And we'll gladly, open the doors for you to actually walk those properties. And Derek, I'm not sure what's, how it's going to roll, but
one of the things that I wanted to discuss, first of all, I want to thank the councilwoman for allowing to have this opportunity to address the constituents and District 2 in particular. I think it's critical. You will see a lot of me. In fact, you will probably get tired of me. The councilwoman will stop inviting me because we're on the precipice of announcing and establishing a couple of new initiatives for our department, the Community Development and Regulatory Affairs Department. Under the Planning Division, we are going to be launching an initiative called Community Planning Teams. And the idea is to take everyday citizens that live all across the city of South Fulton and educate them on different topics related to planning. So we'll talk about housing, affordable housing, senior housing, market rate housing, the diversity of housing, all things housing. We'll talk about mixed use developments. We'll talk about transit oriented developments. We'll talk about, concepts like a cottage home project. We might even discuss, just for the discussion's sake, not saying that this is something that we want to implement, but the container home projects, container commercial and retail uses. I as a director and having 25 years of experience and having had shared experiences from Michigan to California, to Washington, D.C., now in greater Atlanta, it's my, pleasure to share with you some of the things that I've been engaged in, and to just enlighten and educate, those individuals who are open to learning more about planning. It can be a fun discipline, but you have to be open-minded when you approach these things. The first thought that I had, and if you don't mind, I'm going to share something on my screen that hopefully will emote some positive feelings from the group. And if I can find my windows really quick, I will share with you what that is. May not be able to find it. It was an image of 1968. I'm sure Mr. Coleman and Councilwoman Gums were not even thought of at that time.
You would be wrong, sir. I'm saying that. I almost qualify for this property, so be careful.
I got it. But what was significant about 1968 that rings in my mind, obviously, the assassination of Dr. King during that time. And immediately after the assassination of Dr. King in April of 1968, there was the federal legislation that was passed known as the Fair Housing Act. And it was done as an outcry to, the senseless murder of who is someone who has continued to live a legacy in his death, in terms of his efforts to promote nonviolence. But, during his whole time as a civil rights leader, it's well documented that Dr. King spent some time in Chicago to deal with the issues of housing, fair housing. In particular, he wanted to advocate for Blacks who were relegated to the most deprived areas in Chicago. And so he lived with them, and he tried to understand the conditions. And so the reason why I bring up fair housing law, and one of the things that I hope to engage not only the residents in District 2, but the residents all over the city of South Fulton, is that we have to be very careful when we talk about restricting housing types. That is really the purpose of the Fair Housing Act. And that is to afford individuals, regardless of race, regardless of their sex, regardless of their color, regardless of their religious ideology, regardless of their physical capability, if they have physical handicaps or if they have handicaps in general, physical, mental, whatever the case may be, regardless of their marital status, afford them opportunities to have housing in any part of the United States. And because this federal law, every state has to enact it, and every state has to abide by the general principles that's codified in what we call the protected classes under fair housing law. And so I say that to say, because it's important as you continue to hear residential developments coming before this city. Understand that while you may have your preference for type of house, housing variety is protected, basically under fair housing law. And municipalities are sometimes sued if they don't offer zoning districts that allow for an array of different housing types. So I mean apartments, I mean condominiums, townhomes, I mean single family homes, I mean mobile home parks, everything that runs the gamut as it relates to housing. And again, it might not be your preference, but housing in and of itself is protected. And then those individuals with their specific protected classes are also protected. So part of what I hope to do and want to do as we launch these community planning teams, and they will also be supplemented by having conversations through what we call our planning and economic development speaker series, where we will invite nationally renowned speakers that work in planning and development and economic development to our city to engage and have conversations with the community. It's a further way to help educate and really break down the barriers of maybe information that maybe as a resident you were never privy to, but now you have an opportunity to learn, to engage in charrette activities, to take field visits, across Metro Atlanta and maybe even in some parts of Georgia, just to see when Mr. Coleman talks about a market rate active community for seniors, to understand what that really is. It's really all about lifestyle at that point. These are individuals who are well into their retirement or they're close to retirement, but they choose not to have the responsibilities of homeowner. They want to push all that responsibility to a developer who maintains the property in perpetuity. And all they got to do is continue to go wash their Cadillacs and their Mercedes and just enjoy, maybe some limited gardening activities, but have a lifestyle that caters to individuals that can pay for these types of services. So movies on the lawn, a shuttle bus that takes you to and from grocery stores, planned events where they go to, museums, the opera, concerts. I mean, it's all, a lot of it is predicated on the programming side, but some of it is also predicated on just the lifestyle that's offered. And so, when we get projects like this, we hope first that the communities will be open-minded to just listen, to not prejudge, but just listen to kind of what, the developer is talking about. And then, ask the pertinent questions related to, how is this going to impact, my property? How is this going to impact? I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment just to talk a little bit about something that is probably, it should be obvious to folks, but sometimes it's not. As it relates to the planning process, anybody, whether you live in the city or not, you can live in Timbuktu. You have the right to file an application to do whatever, a development project. And in this case, Mr. Coleman and his team have decided to do a multifamily apartment building, but exclusive to seniors. And the economic structure is such that it is going to be market rate. So it's not being subsidized by any federal program. It's not being subsidized. There are no income limits related to who can come into this. The only income limit is you have to show proof that you make X amount of dollars to ensure that you can afford the rent based upon your monthly income. But these are not subsidized units, and therein lies a bit of difference in what most people think and they see when they hear of senior apartments. But going back to the original notion of people having the opportunity to file for applications, that's part of the planning and zoning process, not only in the state of Georgia, but in any place in the United States. So if you don't own the property, we require that the developer get a signature from the property owner. They submit an application and they propose to do whatever they're going to do. In some instances, it is a single family residence. In other instances, it might be, in this case, a multifamily dwelling unit. There are protective development standards through our zoning ordinances, through our zoning ordinance, and through our overlay districts that provide the general guidance for developers to follow. And so as a result of that, we received this application and we took it through the planning process. The process for City of South Fulton is we first start off with the community zoning information meeting. And so we had that meeting probably about a month and a half ago or so, where we discussed with the community, here is the proposed project. This is the general plan land use, future land use recommendations, and if it's consistent or not. And then we discuss the current zoning and if there is a request for a rezoning or a variance or a modification, we discuss those things in that first community zoning information meeting. And then by ordinance, the applicant is required to have his or her own meeting. And that's what Mr. Coleman discussed earlier. And so he had that meeting and was able to discuss the project. Not quite sure how many people attended. And then, how many did you say?
24.
Oh, 24 people. Great.
But I sent out 867 invites.
Yes. Yeah.
Somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But during the time that we have that, our meeting, our city held meeting, and the applicant has the meeting, we, the city, the staff of the Community Development Department, who's chiefly responsible for providing a staff report for Councilmember Gumbs and for all of the elected officials and for the public, we have not done our full assessment because it's so early in the process. The City of South Fulton, because it's committed to community engagement, wants to make sure that the community has opportunities to learn and hear about these projects early in the process. But with that, I do always say, please listen to the various presentations with an open mind. There are some facts that we just need to state up front related to our city, to our great city. We're 84 square miles, yes. But more specifically, we probably have the largest area that's ripe for, and when I say ripe, I mean RIPE in the sense of ripe as in fruit that's ready to eat. We have so many opportunities and we're plentiful for new development activity. And that is something that no matter what type of ordinance or regulation you try to enact from an elected official's perspective, and even from a citizen's perspective, we will have limitations in terms of how we can stop the growth. It's going to occur because we're close to the airport and because we're close to downtown Atlanta, because we have a lot of land and because we have major thoroughfares, in close proximity to our city. We are probably among the top 3 communities within Metro Atlanta that is highest on the list for the developers in all realms, residential, commercial, industrial. We just are, because there's so many more opportunities and we're not nearly built out to the point that where we can be. So I say that to say it's important that we allow these applicants to go through the process, and it's important to hear what you have to say in relation to the projects, but understand that they have just like, citizens have a right to comment and should comment. They have a right to pursue these types of development activities. We don't have the right to stop them. We have the right to negotiate and work with them and make and fine tune the project to make sure that it's the best project possible. But they actually have a right to submit these applications and to seek development. And, I think, and I know, I met many citizens since I've been here, going on my third month. And, the citizens of South Fulton are extremely intelligent. They're very knowledgeable of the planning and zoning process. So they understand how, all of these activities work, and that's great. But I don't think we do enough to talk about also the rights of the development community. And what my role is to be, think of me as a orchestra conductor. So I'm in the middle. I advocate for the betterment of the community, for what's going to be the benefit of the community. And so I want to listen to the residents. I obviously listen to the elected officials, but then I also listen to the developer. And my goal is to make sure that everybody can come together, discuss the project, all of its impacts, and work out a situation where we can get the best product possible, whatever that is. And so, I'm happy to hear Mr. Coleman introduce this concept. As he has mentioned, most senior housing developments, not only in the state of Georgia, not only in the South, but across the United States, are what we call subsidized housing developments. They're typically done through low-income housing tax credits. And don't worry, we're going to have a session on that so you can learn all about that. But there are low-income housing tax credits that are subsidized. They're typically located in low-income, low to moderate income census tracts where the individuals are already living there, and it's an opportunity to afford them an opportunity to have a new house, a new apartment, a new residential unit. And so I would just say, as we move forward with this particular project and other projects, let's make sure that we are open-minded. We ask the right question. We ask questions, and then just commit to kind of working to a solution to somehow bring about the best product possible. So I will end on that note and turn it back over to Coleman and see if we have any questions in the queue from the audience.
Yeah, and Derek, that was really good. You took some of my thunder, but you did a great job because we do both tax credit and market rate. The LIHTC deals, as you mentioned, there's a nice little box of people that fit in that. The city of South Fulton is a very thriving community. The incomes are high. Therefore, this product is to serve those seniors who do not want to live in a home and maintain that home and all the things that come with it, but want to live in something extremely nice, high grade finishes, all the amenities you can think of and the services. We have a residential director outside of our third party leasing company that actually manages the programmatic part of our project. So my parents are 83. My dad's 83. My mother is 78. My mother's ready to move out of their house. They have steps, and she wants to stay near me. I live down the street. I'm in the city of South Fulton, and I'm excited that hopefully one of these developments she can move into, and they're over income for tax credit because they have decent retirements. So, I know the stigmatism that comes with apartments. It always has been that way and always probably will be that way. But I can tell you this, Atlanta metro area has become one of the most rent burdened cities in the US. We made the list, unfortunately. So, now what that means, especially in the fastest growing demographic in the US, which is our seniors, there's not enough housing. Trust me when I tell you that. That's why in our last two tax credit deals, they leased up 100%, 240 units each in less than 30 days. But no one making over 40 plus $1,000 can live there because they're over income. That is the gap. And it's always kind of the missing middle. You don't want to go to one of these $5,000 a month places where you got to put a $500,000 down just to get in the property. We saw that with these types of properties where we're talking, $1,800, $1,900 all the way up to, because we have larger units, some would be $2,600. So, I don't want to get into the income part of this and the stigmatism that also comes with that, because I am in the affordable space as well. But, the crime and all the things that I heard about, that is, I just don't, it's not relevant for this. It really isn't. And I know where it comes from. Walton Lakes, which is right down the street, which is a combination of multifamily and senior, but it's tax credit. So I know I had a young lady that was a part of the community meeting. Her mother went over there. She was over income. And guess what? There's nowhere else here unless she goes to a multifamily not a senior only. That's not what she wants her mother. She wanted her in a senior only property because she didn't want to deal with all the other things that people bring up when they're moving into a multifamily that has kids and all the things that come with it. I know this product is needed. My mother wants to live in one if we can get this done. My biggest thing here, I live here. I'm from Southwest Atlanta. I grew up off of Cascade Road. My pride is on the line as well. My reputation is on the line, and there's no way I'm going to represent something that I'm going to be ashamed of or ever think about moving my parents into. And that's a fact. Needless to say, I respect and I understand some of the opinions that we get from everyone. But as Derek said, please, be informed about things before you get to the end, because that's what I heard a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't even get two words out, and it was, excuse my French, hell no apartments. It was like, hey, hold on, just can you hear me out first? So let me do this, because I see quite a few comments that have been posted, and I want to go through each one of these really quick. The rendering should be out within the next 5-7 business days. That was one question. We have not chosen a builder for the actual project. However, this is a joint venture between my firm and another firm. My firm is 5 Points Development. I have a website that you can go, look at. And then that's also the Searles Foundation. There's a website there as well. It's a joint venture between the two of us. I found the land. It's in my neighborhood, and I'm the one that brought the project to the group. So this was me. And I heard some other things that came out on the last meeting and saying you white developers. I was like, well, I know I'm not white, and you won't do it in your neighborhood. This is my neighborhood. So, I wanted to spell that right away. The next thing was, do you have a price point? Market rate in this area for this particular project. And here's the other part that we struggled with. We had to go more than 15 miles just to find what we would call a comp for a senior market rate apartment for this area. And that just shows you the dire need for this particular product. Otherwise, you're not going to have seniors living here, at least not in, the ones that do not want to maintain a home anymore. They won't have anywhere to live in the city of South Fulton because there will be nothing for them unless they move into your straightforward multifamily, which is not good for seniors. It's just not. So the price point, the market rate right now, it's about $2 and I want to say about 30 to 40 cents. You might get up to that point. As everyone knows, the price of everything has gone through the roof. This inflationary economy we're in, we're getting hit really hard. So the price point may even be a little higher by the time we get there, although lumber has come down significantly in the last 2 months. So we're excited about that. And by the way, we did get what we call a pre-con construction number from H.J. Russell. So we're trying to empower our African-American general contractors as well. They are building our Greenbrier project. So in all likelihood, and that is a tax credit deal, by the way, that's 500 units of senior, 240 of senior, 250 of family that we're doing at Greenbrier. And you should see the renderings. You would think it was Buckhead, I swear to God. When you see it, that's exactly what you're going to think. You will not know it's a tax credit deal because we build to the same grade. It doesn't matter who lives there. We don't feel like we should, minimize what we're building because someone can't afford $3 square foot rent. So we make sure we build to the same grade for each of our properties, whether it's tax credit or market rate. Another question, whether it be
before we go on,
sure.
I just wanted to address, you had mentioned comps, and there was a previous question that talked about the potential of this type of development decreasing the property values. And I just want to take a moment to discuss that because I've heard that before. I've heard it in other communities before. And for those of you who are homeowners, if you recall back when you were either having your previous house, if you had a previous house that was appraised, or you needed an appraisal for the new house, new townhome, new condo that you were purchasing, the way in which property values work, it is a like for like. So when Mr. Coleman mentions comp, short for comparables, which means that if you are in a 4-bedroom house, 3.5 bath, they will search high and low, not necessarily the house right next to you, because the house right next to you may be 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. That is not considered a comparable. And so they will take the basic elements of your house, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, and they will find a similar house as close as possible to it. And then they will rate them amongst each other in order to determine the value of an appraisal to get a price point of your house. And so a lot of people sometimes kind of get the issue confused when they talk about this might devalue my property, or this might impact the rise in my property value. That is really determined, a great deal of it is determined on the comparables for the houses that are similar to yours. Now, if there are issues like a dump near your house, or if there is a landfill near your house, those types of things may impact the value. But by and large, when you're introducing different types of residential and even commercial projects to a larger extent, they won't have a negative impact. If anything, they may actually add to the increase in value because of just the built up area. And oftentimes when you have these types of major developments, they help to put in the needed infrastructure in most cases. So I just wanted to address that issue related to potential impacts to property values, and then, as opposed to what is being proposed here. So, you might live in an area that is traditionally single family. Having this product to come in does not mean that it's going to impact the value of your house. We see this if you're driving into Buckhead from Midtown. We see this all along going into Buckhead, right? You'll see 30, 40, 50-story skyscrapers, and then if you look on either side of the road, you'll see residential developments. Those skyscrapers do not have a negative impact on those single family residential developments, but there are two different types of residential types. There are two residential types, two or more residential types. So you'll have a high-rise residential, and then you'll have a single family resident literally right next to each other. And so just keep that in mind as you continue to engage with the developer about some of these issues that really may not be issues?
Thank you, Derek. I think we answered this question. What's the difference between tax-based units and market rate? Once again, the tax credit projects are subsidized by low-income housing tax credits, which basically covers about 60% in most cases of the project cost, and that allows that project to lower the rent. And then it's also restricted to people who make a certain amount of money. And that can go from 60% all the way down to 30% of the area median income. Another question. This is a rental property, not for purchase. Someone asked that question as well. I believe I addressed the price point, probably starting around $1,800 all the way up to probably $2,600. As we're trying to, although this is only 124 units, so we won't have a huge, I'll say, variety of unit types to make that pricing as flexible. But the larger communities where, like, we're doing 240, although it is a tax credit community, you're able to offer more unit types and then therefore different price points as well. And
Mr. Coleman,
yes.
Can you just address that issue? And I'm going to let you address that. Sometimes there is this thought, rental versus home ownership. Can you, just in your experience as a developer, and you just mentioned the price points related to this, can you talk about the missed aspect that many people don't talk about is when people move into these types of market rate housing units, they have a lot of disposable income. And because they don't have the necessary responsibilities of, paying property taxes, replacing a roof, having to deal with plumbing when you got plumbing issues, all of these things are maintained by the developer who owns the project, that allows the renter more disposable income to spend in Councilwoman Gunn's district.
Right.
So
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's really important when you start talking about market rate and honestly, any type of housing. And that's why they have tax credit housing, because most of the time people are rent burdened. Now, getting to these types of properties where typically your typical tenant is someone who has a larger amount of disposable income, and they're looking for something extremely nice, number one. And I can take you, one of our partners is on the board of a community in Buckhead where the rents are honestly $5,000 a month, $500,000 buy-in. And I promise you, it's not that much different than what we're getting. I'm just telling you, it's not. The amenities are pretty much the same. The only difference is probably the actual structure itself, because it's a high rise. And but the bottom line, they're renters and they have to put that $500,000 down to rent. But guess what? They can afford it. Now we're not going to put that product here because it doesn't, the market research doesn't say it should, but the market research says the demographics are here from an income perspective. And then obviously the missing product, I mean, it's nowhere to be found, says it's a high demand for it as well. And it would absorb very well in the community. It's just a matter of making sure that everyone's educated and understand what this product is and isn't. Derek has done a wonderful job explaining from the community side. Once again, we're very, very, very open. You can visit even our tax credit properties, because you're not going to know the difference unless you ask somebody how much they make and how did they get in here. That's the only way you're going to know. That's it, because they're just as nice. The quality of the actual construction and also the management is at the highest level as well. That was it for, make sure I didn't miss anyone's question. There were some comments that I don't think I can comment on. I think that would be Councilwoman. She would have to comment on some of the other things I saw here. So I won't get into.
And someone had asked about low-income housing tax credits. So I just posted a link from HUD that kind of gives you, at your leisure, you could probably review it. And it offers great understanding of what it is, but it really is, and it's even different from public housing. So it's a form of subsidized housing, but it's not federally mandated under the public housing program.
Right.
So developers like Mr. Coleman, who have an affordable development arm, compete for these tax credits that are offered across the state at the state level. And the more competitive the project, typically they are awarded to those who offer housing for the, and I mean, not to say it in the negative sense, but people that have the most limited income. I was going to use the word poor, but limited income, the most limited income you can think. Individuals who are making $10,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 a year, and they may have a family of 2 or 3. So oftentimes, when developers like Mr. Coleman have to compete for these tax credits, they have to put up a very competitive application, and they're going against 3 or 4. I shouldn't 3 or 4. 20, 30 different types of developers who are wanting to do these types of programs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I know, Joy, if you can make sure those links are actually within the YouTube chat so they can also get them as well. I did have a few questions for Mr. Coleman. Is he going to come back on? Okay.
I'm back. Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Certainly, this project is going across one of a very established subdivision that's been there for quite some time. It does have a lot of older residents. They are certainly concerned about traffic and I guess a lot of noise, and then just new people coming to the area. With any of your properties, can you address that, because these are legacy residents and we want to make sure that they're comfortable, with this new, I know we're a big old city now, but I guess trying to get them comfortable with understanding what's coming across the street from them.
Absolutely. And, clearly working with GDOT, traffic studies and things like that may be required. Not all the time. I'm not sure if this will actually fall into that category. However, doing these decel lanes and things like that, obviously we'll have all the standard stuff. But here's the other part of it. And you can believe this or not believe it. The average age of the people that live in our senior properties is 78 years old. Most of them do not drive. That's why we always go for a parking variance, because we have so many parking spaces in our senior properties because a lot of them just do not drive anymore. And now that you have all of these services that will bring you any and everything you need and drop it off to you. And in this particular property, we'll have the Amazon lockers and all of that for the residents to get deliveries, when they need them. So I don't believe it's going to be a huge burden. At least this property is 124 units. The prevailing one bedrooms will probably be around 65% will be one bedrooms. And typically in our senior, they're mostly women. I'll say about 85% on our properties are women. And we just don't see a lot of traffic at all. I mean, it's about as quiet of a resident project you're going to get is seniors because of the non-driving. Some of them do not want to drive again, and the ones that do drive don't like to drive. And now that we have delivery for everything, we've seen it even go down more where they just give up the car. And we also provide transportation through our residential services where they don't have to drive if they don't want to either. So I don't think if this was a family deal, I definitely would understand, because typically you need more parking than even what's allowed sometimes, because you have teenagers that have cars. If it's a family of 4, They may have 3 cars. So, but we won't have that issue here at all.
Okay. And I do have to agree with Miss Stevens. She put in about legacy of Walton Lakes. They're very beautiful and high end. I have been over into those senior apartments, and they are very nice. Another question: do you anticipate that this possibly could be a gated senior community, or is it normally your properties are not gated?
Now we make an assessment based on let's call it the crime data. To be quite frank, that's what we use to assess whether a community should be gated or not. And then we also listen to the community as well. So we have gated and non-gated communities. It's our Vine, for instance, we have 106 units in Vine City. It's gated, and you probably know why. And so we take that into consideration, but it's not a burden on us to do that.
Okay. Well, that might be something to consider, a gated community as well. One of the things is what about the buffers, or not being able to, I guess, kind of tuck it away to where it's not, when you're coming out your subdivision, you're actually seeing a big old apartment. What about your landscaping and buffering to avoid that? Because I know that was another concern.
Yeah, that was brought up at the community meeting. And basically, if you look at the site plan, where you'll see there are islands. There'll be an island in front of the property where you can buffer. You can't buffer it all, but you can buffer kind of, in other words, have a better visual than what you would see versus a parking lot and a lot of cars. Because even in the city of South Fulton, I believe, I think the trees are, I forget what the actual code is, but we have to leave a lot of trees.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, the more you cut down, the more that damn project costs. So you want to leave as much as possible. So I took that into consideration. I already talked to the architect. He said it's, obviously, and if I'm looking at the front of the property, we'll actually have to plant some trees. And that's what we looked at, because that frontage is already a little raw, and what's there is not what you would preserve for, the type of vegetation you want to see. But those islands will absolutely give a better visual for the subdivision across the street. I went by there, I think maybe about a week ago, just to put my eyes on it again. And I understood the concern. I really did. And I think beautifying that as much as possible with the type of landscaping that they want to see. And that's the beauty of this. Getting the buy-in from the community, saying, what do you want to see if we have the opportunity to do the project? And then I did that with the Sandtown project. And I think we were able to do everything they asked, except for, there was one thing we just couldn't do. But I mean, we got a lap pool, we got the conversation pool, we got a bocce ball court. We were able to, outdoor kitchen, the whole nine. We were able to add every amenity that they wanted, except for one. We got a dog park. So depending on the property, I'm going to open it up to the community, especially, and sometimes people don't know, they may end up living there, although they oppose the project, because they don't want to leave the neighborhood. And if they're over income, they're going to have to, because there's nothing here for them to live in.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a couple of times.
Right.
Also, too, I think the thing is, we have the Airtropolis, of course, connectivity that's happening a lot in District 2 with the walking trails. Walton Lakes has a park as well. Mm-hmm. So hopefully you'll be able to do some walking trails and connectivity to kind of help with what we're promoting as far as, a healthy community and things of that nature. I know that is a big concern as well.
That's huge. All of our every senior project we have, even the one in the urban settings, we have gardens, number one. And except for the urban ones where there's no vegetation, because there's no land and you're going vertical, we have walking trails throughout, because that's the most important thing. We want our seniors to be as active as possible. So therefore, we try to activate as much walking on the property as possible. And that also leads back to security, right? if you're going to be walking around the property, you probably want it to be as secure as possible. So that's when, if we have such, if we're fortunate to have enough land to do those types of amenities, and it's more than likely we're going to gate the community just so our seniors are safe.
Gotcha. Well, I think, first of all, I do want to thank you all for Mr. Hall and Mr. Coleman for joining tonight and kind of talking through some of this. I am also glad, Mr. Coleman, that you are willing to continue to work with the community a little bit more just so we can see if this can make it across the finish line. So I am looking forward to some additional conversations and getting the community engaged, and hopefully, and I'm asking the residents to come with an open mind, to think about what or envision what you would like to see there and how we, again, make this amenable so we can all kind of digest it. I do think that particular area needs some type of development to help with the issues of trash and things of that nature. So I really think that something needs to go there. As we continue to work together, we'll figure out exactly what needs to go there. So, Mr. Coleman, I am looking forward to working with you and Mr. Hall and the community to get some more of these questions answered and to build something beautiful there at that particular location. I do know that Old Fairburn Road and Camp Creek is a troublesome intersection with GDOT as well. So we're going to really have to be intentional and think strategically about, the impact of traffic flow and things of that nature. I know it's hard to get any type of curb cuts off of Camp Creek Parkway. So I do know that we're going to have to figure out how to, not make the traffic impact any more worse than it is. Right. So that's probably one of my biggest concerns as well, because I'm always on GDOT about that.
And one last thing, my partners are a nonprofit development company, and we partner with a charitable organization in the neighborhood in every community that we actually develop in. So we look forward also to working with the nonprofits in the area. So we're open to any suggestions of who should be the beneficiary of that.
Okay. Well, definitely the residents have heard that. And my last question, just so we can kind of level set and meet people's expectations. If this project is approved, what is the timeline of, I guess, shovels in the ground, just so people can have a realistic expectation? Because people think if it's approved, it's going to start happening overnight.
Not so clearly. I would say typically it takes our architects and engineers roughly about, call it 6 months from soup to nuts to get plans done. We already have our units and all of that. All that's done already. If we get approved, we turn them loose, and typically within 5.5, 6 months tops. And this is a much smaller project, probably go a lot faster, but I'm just giving you the conservative number. I'll be frank with you. A lot of it will depend on the city of South Fulton. There are challenges. I'm having some now with our other project of getting through that process, and that's one of the in the development world. And I don't know if I should say this or not. It is some chatter going on and how difficult it is to develop in the city of South Fulton.
Understood.
Yeah, and
I hear it as well.
But as they say, I'm up to the challenge. and it's all, to me, things are about relationships sometimes, almost all the time, to be quite frank. And that's why I'm not trying to shove this down anyone's throat. I want buy-in. I don't want to do something people don't want, but I don't want to do it because they're not informed either. And I think purposely, that's why we should just keep doing what we're doing to make sure we understand where the community is coming from and address any issues that they have.
Well, it looks like you got about maybe 1 or 2 people that are ready to apply if it does occur. So, I mean, that could be a positive sign. One other thing as well is I know they're concerned about a transient community. When you think about apartments, you think about, a rotating of, I guess, residents coming in and out, or, they stay in 1 year and then they leaving. with particular senior developments, can you share any data on that it will not necessarily be a transit community, and that, you know, you'll find some people that will be there for quite a long time?
The reason why the senior communities are not, because typically they are older seniors. They don't like moving. And number one, the occupancy stays high and the turnover is low in these senior developments for that reason. And most of the time seniors move to these communities. There's a real purpose. It's not a job. It's a real purpose because they want to be there. So typically, unless something is going really wrong with the actual project or the property, I hope this doesn't sound too morbid, they leave when Jesus say, come on home. And that's, we have that more than anything. We don't have much turnover. So.
Okay. Well, definitely thank you for answering that question. And Ms. Rice Hendricks, he shared maybe about 6 to 12 months as far as timeline for shovels in the ground. So again, thank you all. This has been recorded, so it is on live stream. You can always go back to the YouTube. I do encourage you all to share this with your neighbors. We'll have more engaging conversations. And as Mr. Hall has shared, you'll continue to learn a little bit more about planning and zoning in the city of South Fulton, where we can all come together and not make this such a cumbersome event for developers. I've heard the chatter as well. And I'm always about protecting the integrity of our community. And I want us to continue to grow and shine because we have a lot of potential here in the city of South Fulton. So I do encourage you all to reach out to me. I'm pretty sure Mr. Coleman will schedule some more community meetings. Stay active and stay engaged. And you all have my email address, and we'll be in touch. So again, thank you for your time this evening. Mr. Hall, please make sure you get something to eat and be up bright and early for tomorrow.
Breakfast of Champions.
Again, thank you so much. And again, as I shared, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me at carmelita.gums@cityofsouthfulton, or you can always inbox me on our council page for Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat, all that other good stuff. All right. I hope you all have a great evening, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.